And the house, the realtor who sold me the house 3.5 years ago, looked at it. Needs a few little things to do. My daughter, if she's listening, she'll understand. The house is lived in, and so it was empty before and totally clean, but just needs a little bit of TLC, right?
Sure,
So
sure.
so yeah, so she's done a great job. We worked for 3 days, and yeah, it's bittersweet, but it's exciting because the kids are coming home. And we did do Easter dinner. We made nice ham and scalloped potatoes and food.
Ooh,
Yep.
nice. Yeah,
Yep.
very good.
All right.
Very good. Yeah,
And you?
excellent. Oh, it was good. What should we do? We had everybody over on the Sunday. I always do ham the night before, then turkey the day of, so it was good. All the grandchildren came, and there was chocolate cream pie involved. It was delicious.
Pie in the face involved or eating it?
No, no, eating it. So when so I was a little bit spoiled growing up. Nobody's going to be shocked to hear that. I was the only girl, the youngest child, and adopted. So that's like winning the lottery sometimes. And one of those times is pie times. So when my mom was a big baker, it was a very traditional household as far as each parent knowing their role, if you will. And so my mom was big into baking, and she did
In
like,
English, right? English
yeah,
is for anybody
exactly.
who's
So the
new. Yeah.
pies, the jams, the scones, but I never liked the pies. So whenever it was like a big dinner, not very often, but when it was big, or like my birthday and she was making pies for other people, she always made me a chocolate cream pie. And it was for Michelle. It was my pie. I got the first piece, I got the last piece, and whatever's in between, people could share. So fast forward, so she's been gone a long time. I've been out of the pie zone for a long time. So Nicole took me somewhere. We were somewhere right before Easter, and so she says, talking about these pies. She's got a guy she works with. He makes these homemade pies, and they've been buying them, and they're fabulous. And was I interested in one? And I was like, oh, well, the guys, like everybody else in the house likes the pies. And I'm like, and so then she forgot to order one, or I don't know, something. And she's like, oh, and I said, well, I don't care. I only like chocolate cream pie. And Tom, you're not even going to believe this. She's like, oh, what's a chocolate cream pie? I've never heard of that.
Oh no.
And I'm like, I think she's the one adopted. And said, don't you remember when we used to go to Gima? We call her Gima or Grandma. When we used to go to Grandma's, there was that one chocolate pie. So she didn't remember that. Fast forward to a couple days later, she took me for my weekly infusion. She picks me up, chocolate cream pie on the back seat, all for me. So that
Wow.
was very exciting.
Here's a question for you.
Sure.
Being the pie lady with English pie people,
It's my only pie
is
knowledge, but yes.
have you heard of a pie called banoffee pie?
No.
Okay, so when we were in England, an English couple, he was a professor, a tall, skinny guy, we just love these guys, real good people met. So the first time we go for dinner, so eating food in England, I don't know if you experienced, if that's what your parents cooked here or your mom. It was just some of it was weird, right? And I have a food background, but it was like
Bland.
bangers and mash.
Very
Um,
bland.
Meatballs were called,
We didn't do any of that.
yeah.
My parents were Yorkshire. It was a little different. The whole country's every little area is different,
Well,
right?
we're in Somerset, so we're not as cool as Yorkshire, but
Apparently, we had Yorkshire
but
puddings
it
and
was just
roast
weird
beef.
stuff. So we go to Keith and Joy's place, and he has this banoffee pie. And I go, interesting. What is it, right? So
Yeah,
we try it, and I try to stay away from sweet tea back then, but if something's really good, it's really good.
sure.
So banoffee is banana toffee pie.
Oh, it doesn't even sound familiar. Banana
And
coffee.
well, I don't
Is it
know.
good?
I think he stole it from somebody not in England because
Oh,
people I ask in England go, I've never tried it.
never
So
heard of it.
basically, he would get condensed milk and like the can of condensed milk,
Yeah.
and he would like put one or two in a pot, and he would cook it down, and it would caramelize. It would turn into caramel. and then he would have bananas. He had bananas.
So, because we used to have banana cream pie. Is that similar?
Was it caramel or was it like white pudding?
No, it was yellow banana, thick, like a pudding, but she made everything from scratch. So I have no idea how she made it. But it tasted like very strong banana, just like very strong lemon, just
Well,
like very strong chocolate.
this one here had the top was banana. I can't remember. No, yeah, I think it was like the filling on the bottom, graham crust, and then he made everything from scratch too, so it was just delicious.
Mm.
And so it was this caramel, this condensed milk turned to caramel, sliced bananas on top, and then whipped cream, and it was just like
Oh, okay. Definitely did
so.
not try it.
Whenever I went there, I had it. I
Yeah,
tried to make it here. I can't do it the same. We're
there's
pretty
probably
good.
some trick, just like Yorkshire puddings, right? The trick is in the oil and the temperature.
Well, let me give you one little free information is in England, my son loves Subway. And when we had Subway in England compared to here, even though the same franchise, the food's different.
Of
So even if
course.
they have the same like bread and cheese or whatever,
Yeah.
it's just weird. But yeah, like I said, the meats they sold in the store were like I said, they were just like shank. They'd sell a steak, a shank steak. We would never sell that here. I don't know if I've ever seen it here, except for
Oh,
butcher.
yeah.
Anyways, enough of the silliness. So we're going to talk about Easter, Halloween, and Christmas all tied together. What are we going to call that?
A mess, a damn mess.
Hella Christmas egg? No. Whatever.
I don't know, but
Okay. Expectations.
yeah, expectations. That's right. Keeping it real, right? Yeah,
So
exactly.
me and Michelle, and we were off last week, so we hope everybody else had a good Easter.
Mm.
And like we've said a few times, we have a list of things we want to cover. We've been good, but then we have like open times where we go, hey, what about this or what about that, right? And so I was thinking about expectations, and we decided not to go into the way of politics, which is tomorrow already voting, whatever. And Michelle just said like people are sick of that, which I agree with her, right?
I'm so
And
tired of
and
it.
it's just yeah, it's just one of those things, right? So we pivoted, but I that wasn't going to be the focus, but I thought like I think my thoughts are with expectation, depending on what kind of person you are, like the way you process and think. In the last couple of months, I just know people that have told me, us discussing them, that avoid expectations, so they won't disappoint themselves.
Like in themselves, or what are you
Yeah,
talking about?
in themselves, in
And
their
how do you quest for anything?
they don't.
Wonder how that
They're
works out.
they're fearful.
Yeah.
So sometimes you get people that are indecisive and like in that thing, right? But to me, because I'm like you, I'm going like that's interesting because how do you move forward in anything, right? And one
Yes.
of the, excuse me, one of the person who's fairly successful, he said, I mean, I know he's whatever, he's like a surfer dude, and he's like, I just live in the moment, whatever. And I said, so how do you plan to buy a car, buy a house, whatever? He goes, if it'll happen if it's meant to be. And I understand that too. Me, you understand to a certain extent, right?
100%.
But how do you like if you limit expectations? And so him and I deep dive just a little bit, and I think it came out of growing up with a fear of failure. And if I don't have expectations of myself, then I won't fail. And I think his issue wasn't with himself. I think his issue was with himself as a younger child with his parents,
Oh,
not meeting their expectations.
well, a lot
So
of times that's where our expectations come from.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's such an interesting thing because I think there's you and me would agree there's healthy expectations. There's goal, like we would use expectations, goals, or I'm sure people can put in other words, but if you want to go forward, and I'm pretty easy peasy in a way, but like in the work I do, if I don't have some time, and actually whatever, my if anybody's my work watch, just give it to my boss and they'll discipline me. We're talking about having strategy And one of our higher ups says, "Oh, we don't need a strategy. That we need a friggin' strategy. We're dealing in the most difficult coffee time in the world, where prices are still going up and up everywhere. Tim Hortons, McDonald's won't matter. It's all going to go up, right? And so, even though I don't, when I go see people now, I don't stress. I'm pretty chill, right? But if I don't have plans for me for trying to get a walk or eat well or meditate, if I don't have expectations of myself, I have a free for all.
Exactly. Then you're running on default. And
Four
when you're
bags of
running,
chips, or is
and
that
well, and
three?
when you're running on default, anything can happen, right? You have nothing to balance. That's so interesting. And I get what he's saying about, you know, that mindfulness, thinking of being in the moment. I was telling you briefly through chat before we came on, and this really ties in really well. I've been watching this 8-part docu-series on Amazon Prime, and it's
Right,
called Hard North. And you talk about your expectations. It's four different people, or well, the one's a couple. So there's five people altogether. One's in northern Quebec, one's in the Yukon. There's a guy in Newfoundland, and then a couple in northern Ontario. Peewinuk, never heard of it, but that's where they are. And it's so interesting because as I was binge watching that, this is how I'm distracting myself from all the rallies and all the politics and
right.
everything. I watch The Goat. I watch Battle Camp. I'm just getting all these things in here.
Battle what? What do you watch? Battle what?
Battle Camp. Have you watched that one yet?
Oh,
Oh, it's good. I just got Nicole hooked on it. Um, yeah, it's like camp, like when you go to camp when you're a kid. So they're doing like those sort of battles. It's pretty good. But this Hard North, it's so funny. So three of them, they're going to basically just land, like they're not trying to be off the grid necessarily, or trying to not, sometimes on these shows, they just want to eliminate everything. These guys aren't doing that. The one guy had a neighbor with a backhoe who helped him, and the one girl, her boyfriend helped, whatever. But it's so interesting when you pick this topic of expectation, their expectation that they were all going to build a house, or the one guy put an addition on a hunt camp, turned it into a house. They didn't know exactly how they were going to get to the end result, but they had so much faith, even though things went terribly wrong. Their math wasn't always mathing, or, whatever that was. It was just so interesting. It showed how they had pride in their projects, the confidence, but they never had that expectation that it was even a possibility to fail. They just didn't know how long it would take. Because,
right,
right, but they were expecting obstacles. And I thought that was so interesting, simply because they're open to the challenge. They're open knowing they're going to have to troubleshoot, right? So I thought that was really interesting. And it's funny because the guy you were talking about just sort of ties in with that, because there is a lot of that these days where people are just doing that mindful thinking, and just like that documentary is, being in the moment, tuning in with nature, obviously. But a lot of the young people, they're just going one day at a time. And
yeah,
but you still have to have some sort of goals and steps and levels to acquire anything, like you said. Probably not the house with the financial stuff, but maybe a car, or to job transition, whatever that looks like.
yeah. Well, I even watched the trailer, and I've seen a few things similar, but I'm still going to
Mhm.
watch it. It's interesting, right? And I have that's not a love hate. That's a I'm trying to stop using the word hate. It's a terrible word. I find it interesting. There's a better way of saying it. Because I know people. Um, Actually, my landlord upstairs, my finger's gone away. My finger's missing. The
Mm.
landlord upstairs, his uncle had this huge property called Paradise Valley that they bought years and years ago. It's for sale now, and they for sale for like $7-8 million. and they did like what this the little promo video I saw. That's what they did. They
Yeah,
had a he had a construction company, so he knew how to do stuff like that.
yeah.
But they basically took a lot of time. It took some muscle, like the daughter's husband, like the and so but they everything was run off of panels, solar panels, and
Okay.
also what are those things with gas if
Generator.
generate, right?
Yeah.
But I've seen the place beautiful. Like so
It's
and I know
amazing.
some people that over the years that were builders, and one of the guys in when we were in Penticton actually, where we used to live a long time ago, there was a guy I worked for. It was terrible. He felt sorry for me because I wasn't working, and he builds log houses, but
Yeah, cool.
it's in the city, and he felt sorry for me. And well, he knew us, but he knew I wasn't working actually. So he hired me. I've never done anything like that, right? So he goes, okay, I want you to cut the lumber. And it was like the beautiful round logs outside, but inside and for scaffolding or whatever, right? So he goes, okay, I need each 2x4. I want you to cut, I want a 2x10, right?
Sure.
So you got, and we have a chop saw.
Yep.
You know how many pieces I didn't cut right? It wasn't a hard job. I couldn't cut the wood right. So then they said, okay, well, we'll get him away from you. Like I
You're
couldn't.
costing them money.
So they said, well, what we'll do is we're going to get you to go up like in the scaffolds, right? And it's like a
Yep.
normal like two-story house. Well, that's where I realized I was afraid of heights. So I'm up there. So it's got the I don't know what they're called now, but at each end of the house, it's an A-frame thing. There's a certain name for it. I'll remember later. And so they're trying to hand me up some nails, just hammer and nails, Tom. This is pretty easy, right? I've got one leg twisted around the wood going this way, the wood going this way. I've got arms. I was holding on for dear life, and they're going, Tom, here's some, like, you're trying to pull some nails for me. They go, I said, I can't grab them. I'm holding on. So they said, okay, that's not your job for you. So then I became, which was a good job. They made me a pilot.
A pilot.
Yeah. So I piled wood from here to pile,
Oh,
but
so
that's my joke. So, but
you
anyways, I
learned all
still,
the things you can't do.
well, you know what? It was interesting. I've mostly been in the food industry, but or in both sides, but many years later, um, for like to helping out a friend, I did some of that same stuff. Not the gables, not climbing the gables. I was better at cutting measured wood than I learned from my mistakes in the past.
Yeah, see? That's maybe
But
you weren't mentally ready. You're, had that I can't mentality
I
instead
can't
of
be
I
good at
can,
everything. Can't be
right?
good. I can't be good at everything.
Sure. But
So
you can learn how to try.
cutting wood. I can do other stuff. I want to do a sidebar before I forget because we're talking about expectations. So you asked me about Easter. Probably, and I can't compare. Seeing my girls is like the world, right? On the way up, have you heard of a woman who does a podcast called Mel Robbins?
Yeah.
You like her or no?
I have
You're allowed.
mixed feelings depending on where you go with this comment. I may or may not share.
So she, sure. Well, and we're allowed to have various of like that. I was thinking this the other day, how we share various opinions or certain things I like or don't like. And like, I don't
Well,
like tofu. Yeah, I don't know her at all.
I don't
But
either.
we listened to I've never listened to her before, but Teresa had a podcast and she was interviewing Dr. Gabor Mate.
Oh,
So
interesting.
you like him,
Okay.
right?
I like him.
So we're driving up. It was why you feel lost in life, and talking about trauma and how to heal, right? And I thought, you know what? You know what his greatest strength was? So this to me was like, talk about expectations. I think for me, not didn't raise expectations like I needed to work more, whatever. It changed perspective and helped my desire, expectation, whatever the pull, right? His way of communicating, telling his story, by the way, when he was a child,
Hmm.
but communicating, I thought was maybe, and I've heard him before, and I've read some books. So I'm not like I'm familiar, right?
Yeah.
For whatever reason, this was, and it was funny during the like near the end of it, because this woman's written a book about her life, whatever, right? I don't, like I said, I don't know her, right? but she's sharing something, and then he goes, he done it in a gentle way, but he didn't correct her, but he brought her back. Like she's saying something, he goes, "That's not your fault." He brought her back, but he talked about trauma in the womb when your mother's
Mhm.
carrying you. I thought, I'm a dude. I didn't like that was an epiphany, aha moment for me. Even
Really?
though I would know that, I just wouldn't think of it because I'm a guy.
Did- Well, it shouldn't matter that you're a guy, but
I never
interesting.
carried a baby in my womb.
No, I know, but you know how energy and emotion works. When
Yeah.
our mom was all tense, obviously that would affect us, right?
Well, I was going to use a bad example about some of my male parts, but it's unfair to do that because I'm teasing you. No, it's just something like I know what you're saying. Of course, I would understand that.
Mhm.
I
Just
just,
that aha moment you had to have. That's
well,
all.
the way he communicated that, and again, I'll probably say it was so good. And it wasn't anything I didn't know in a way,
Hmm.
but it made me think about this with expectations, right? And then the next day, my daughter and my eldest granddaughter, we went into town. So where they go, the nearest Walmart's an hour away, right? So I had them captured in my car. So we listened to it again. And it was revelatory to them both because they're in the midst of trying to not deal with pain and just survive, right? Which is fair. Even my granddaughter, who's 13, was going. She goes, "Papa, like that's like so good. I like the way he says it, right?" But here's why I'm saying it. Talking about expectations, right? If if we can take fear, in my opinion, if we can take fear out of our expectations or win lose, like okay, my expectation I was going to get 10 out of 10, I got 9 out of 10, I suck. Well, you know what I mean, right? If we can try to use this idea of expectation in a positive way to grow, I think it could be a really good tool. Not that
Absolutely.
everybody would use it, right?
Yeah, you have to have the bar at the right level.
And you have to, all the stuff we talk about. Oh, in it, oh, I was going crazy, Michelle. He used all of our stuff. He's stealing our stuff. He talked about self talk. He talked about perception, perspective. I'm nudging Teresa as she
You're
drives.
so new to the game, Tom. You crack
No,
me up.
no, okay, I know that. I'm nudging her. I'm annoying her now. I said, okay, I won't nudge you anymore. Because I said, we're on the
I
hot
how
topic.
like how does the family my family would like get out of the car if I put that on for a 12-hour drive.
Put what on?
What you're just talking about, Mel Robbins and that guy.
It was an hour and 15 minutes
But still, that's I just find that interesting that they're into that.
because they are in the midst of
You have them trapped. That's what it
not
is.
dealing with their mental emotional pain.
No, but I'm talking about Ethan and Teresa.
Oh, Ethan wasn't there. We left it at home.
Oh, he didn't come this time?
Nope. Box of Kraft dinner, a couple bags of
Oh,
noodle
wow,
soup.
good for Ethan.
Yeah, he had a couple exams to write, so he didn't
Good.
come, and it was good for him his first time alone. But yeah,
Right.
so I only did it with my 13-year-old
Teresa.
granddaughter. Well, Teresa shared it with me. I didn't even start that,
Oh,
but
oh my gosh, that's funny. I
that's
thought you were
Teresa.
gonna listen to Joe Rogan and Howie Mandel.
Yeah. Well, she did Joe. Yeah, you told me about that. But yeah, we listened years ago when we first went. We listened to Joe Rogan interviewing um, that astronaut guy or space
Yeah, I know.
guy,
Neil
whatever, and that was
deGrasse.
hilarious. But that was like 3.5 hours.
Yeah, but he does an interview every day like that. I just
No,
thought
no, but
because you're a Howie Mandel fan, you'd appreciate that.
well, I would listen to it. Been
Mm.
kind of busy, but the thing I was going to say here. But here's the funny thing, right? Is if something is your jam, if all of a sudden, hey, Michelle, let's talk about hot topics I know that you love, you would like 360 or 120 or
Oh,
180, whatever you do,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
Like, hey, what do you like that pie? Oh, I love whatever. I'm teasing, right?
sure.
And but
Graham
it's I love
pie.
that. So, anyways, I love that we're wired that way. So stuff like this, I'm wired that way. So I
Well, I think
only
it's great if they were receptive to it. That's
well, but talking about expectation, I wasn't going to talk about the girls. I was talking about my experience or like my trip, right? But in that, because I'm a dad and I'm pretty protective or the grandpa, right? Um, my expectation. So it's selfish, but I trust and I'm fairly kind and mature, right? Is I've watched my daughter be stuck in this one area. She's been functional best as she can as a taking care of a home and a single mom and all this stuff and working a couple days a week and all that, right? But her need to manage through some of the stuff she has to work through, self identity, these things, because it's painful, she's put it aside.
Hmm.
And so sometimes we don't want to push our agenda on people, but sometimes depending where we're at, we may see something in a different perspective. So she wants to be healthy, and she knows you may have a different view, but if she doesn't do the work, you just don't. That's what I'm writing in my book. If you do, I didn't do the work, Michelle, for 24 years. I did everything ass backward.
That's, and
But
you did it when you were ready, and that's what she needs to do when she's ready.
well, I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
I don't I know what you're saying. If she waits till she's ready for another 10 years, her two girls are going to be
I
from
don't disagree.
yeah. So
Oh, I get
part
it.
of you've seen intervention shows, right?
Oh, yeah.
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 So that's kind of the thing, right? So going back to expectations, because that's where I was trying to go with expectations as a parent, and we may be, but as a parent, I may have expectations of my child, not on a number of thing. My son has a friend whose parents are Asian, and they expect the son to be like A plus plus everything all the time without excuse, right?
Sure. He's
That's a
so cute.
cultural thing, right?
Yeah.
But our my expectations are that my kids will be healthy and feel safe to talk to us and have goals. That'll be big goals, but like, have some like
Those are your
Ethan's.
expectations, like for like adults.
Well, Ethan's 19.
Yeah, they're adults. They're both adults.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
go on. This is good. Explain what you're because where you're going with this.
Well, I'm just sort of listening and gathering information. Um, it's in because like all our kids are well, except for Ethan, but like she's in her 30s. My kids are in their 30s. I don't really have any expectations for my kids because I expect them. I guess
Well,
my expectation is for them to be productive people in society, and but our situations are different, so I don't really have an opinion because I'm not walking in your shoes. I've walked in Emily's shoes, I'll tell you
yeah,
that. But we all have our different way to
yeah,
approach
and
things,
seriously,
and I don't,
yeah, I know what you're saying. And seriously, I was laughing as my sister because you go, I don't have any expectations, but I expect you would do
I
the same
know,
thing.
right? I realized the
Then we go, what am I
flaw
talking about, right?
as soon as
But
I said it. Yeah.
yeah, so it's a very general. It's the expectations I have is out of love and care. I don't care how they perform, to be honest with you, but I want them to feel like they can do their best. If they need help, they ask for help because I think that's a challenge in our society, in my opinion, from what I do, right? People, a very small percentage of
Mm.
people ask for help, be it emotionally,
Or
financially.
they ask for help continuously and never stand on their own 2 feet.
Well, and those are
Could
the
be the other
people
side.
that are insecure and needy. Talk about
Sometimes, yeah.
part of that
I
would
think
be
it's a habit too, though. Like it's just
yeah.
when you're, and I'm not like we're not talking about your scenario.
No, we're
I'm
talking in
just
general. Yeah.
I'm just saying in general, yeah, because you see that a lot with the younger, and I don't want to like say a certain like millennials, because like my kids are all millennials. They do not fit into the millennial box, if you will.
Right.
But I think,
Obviously.
right, but I think, yeah, obviously, but I think,
Should I write that down?
nope,
Well, so what? Keep your thought. What I mean,
yeah,
obviously, is because I know the type of mother you've been. So
yeah.
obviously, to me, so
Well, and my kids are like as like, and I'm not going to tell you for 1 minute they're perfect. I got a lot of grandchildren. I got a lot of baby mamas that I have to do. Like, so it's not that at all. But when you look at, the a lot of the younger people today that have that expectation of starting at the top, maybe having a house before you find a relationship. These different skewed expectations in my mind, like that one starting at the top, not realizing the value of, you know, um, doing the legwork, working. There's so many lessons and value in starting at the bottom, working your way up. You know what I mean? The like whenever you get a raise, how exciting does that make you feel? The pride, the accomplishment. You know what I mean? They're missing all that. So I think, and this is where, sort of going back to that show I was watching, I look at, and we won't go down the rabbit trail, but I look at like the kids today, and okay, so take all of our four, not including Ethan, because that would be not fair, but my three adult children, and then you're like the four kids in their 30s. If all of a sudden the power went down and they had to wing it, how good would they do? Or if all of a sudden there was just ingredients and no box foods, how would they cook? How would they? And this isn't a you and I failed them. This is the school system, society, convenience. Do you know what I mean? It's such an interesting thing.
Well, and see, that's a challenge. So in the show, in the podcast with Gabor, he brought up again another thing we talked about that I nudged Teresa is he talked about nature and nurture,
Yeah,
and he said, and I hadn't thought about this, but he said majority things aren't nature. So majority things aren't a genetic composed thing. They could be experiential from the womb. It could be all this
sure.
stuff, right?
Environment. Yeah,
Environment, right? And so I think using your experiment, just hypothetically, because unless I ship Emily there, it's not going to work.
yep,
Um, there's so many variables. It depends on the personality of the child. One thing Gabor, so talking about expectation, one thing Gabor talked about, because this woman talked about her kids and her first daughter was a good birth, and the second one was 6 months premature and 36 hours of labor. And
ooh,
then the forceps wouldn't use, they had to use suction. And she tore too much information. And then she was postpartum, post,
postpartum depression.
and didn't want to see her baby.
Yeah,
And so, but so she's telling her story from her book, I guess. And he said this thing I thought was brilliant. He says, there's no parents the same for any kids. There's no such thing.
no, even
So
in the same family. That's right.
in the same family, if you have child A in say at whatever your age is, and 2 years later you have your second baby, it could be a boy, doesn't matter if they're the same gender or not, but your security can be different,
Yep.
your mentality can be different, like good or bad, stress, like all this stuff, right? So going back to, I want to play off what you said because I think I love this stuff. It's interesting, right? If our children were in a crisis
Mhm.
mode, which could be not having a recipe to make a cake, joking,
Yeah, right.
but but it would be interesting. Like I even think of your three kids from what I know, because I know Nicole probably the best, right? But they, I think they would have confidence, like in certain things, and maybe confident but not as confident. It depends on like risk, like what your personality is. If you're not scared to climb up
Right,
the gables and you're not worried about falling off, which was me, right?
right.
So um so it's such an interesting thing, but it's really comes out of, so with this expectation thing, how do we, so here's a question, so we leave all that, so the kids will be all be different, and you and me would applaud them on, you can do it, proud of you, whatever we would say, right? Because we
I'd
don't
say
want them
make
to
me a
be,
sandwich.
yeah, You didn't spread the mustard right. You got to go to every inch of
I like
bread.
little onions.
Yeah. Oh, anyways, I don't want to digress, but I know people that are that. I can't
Oh
go
yeah.
shopping to the grocery store for a certain person. And because I'll never get anything right. I'll get some things right.
Hmm.
And then my inside voice goes like, go get your own groceries.
Yeah. Oh my
then I
gosh. I
realized,
get that. We'll
then I
drop
realized,
that at the
okay,
door.
you know what? This is probably an important time. It's okay. I don't need to lose it. I can
Right.
go lose it in a room. I can take my scream therapy,
Hmm. There you
but it's interesting with our kids. Using the word expectations because I some of the guys that I work with, mostly guys, right? And they're like, I actually believe with some of them for sure that they're trying to recreate and relive the disappointments they felt for their fathers by putting that same pressure onto their children, especially the male, if they have sons, daughters too, right? One
right.
example was a guy who wanted to play hockey, was a good hockey player, but wanted to make the NHL. This guy was in Alberta, and he couldn't make it. So he had a boy and a girl. So he's telling me the story, and both the boy and girl, he pushed, provided equipment, whatever they needed. Like
Yeah.
makes a decent living, but he wanted to relive his failure by them making the NHL, which they did.
Hmm.
And I think one of them, I can't remember, one of them, lost interest in hockey like at 16. And it's so interesting, like like we were saying earlier, expectations is such a topsy-turvy thing. You can use it in a very positive way. You go, okay, I expect this week to get, I'll use us. I none of us said it, but I expect this for Tom. I expect this next coming week, I want to get 20 more followers. Right? That's me. Just
Oh,
saying.
sure. Yep.
If it doesn't happen based on my energy or not, or time,
Hmm.
if I beat myself up over that expectation, I'm kind of missing something.
Well, exactly. And with that, there has to be another part, the how, the
Yeah.
when, the what, right? So
Well,
you,
we were talking about food before, right? And part of the language with certain companies was cheaters. Oh, you have a cheating day, right? Stuff like that, right?
oh, terrible. Who are you cheating on?
And but it's interesting. 10 years ago, that was fine. Hey, for a little cheat, right? But we're learning. Well, maybe not for everybody, but we're
Depends on
learning
your
that.
circle, but yeah, probably for like you.
Yeah, ha 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 ha. Inside. Look on line 4 of our agreement. but but it's interesting what words, like I think of even marketing.
Hmm.
Um, not going down the political area, but I just use this example, right? Because I go crazy. I can't put anything on now. I'm tired of it. Like you, tell me what you want to do. Don't try to win by talking how shitty everybody else is. I'm sick of that politics
Right.
in North America because, like because I'm older than you by many years. But anyways, I remember back. I was still young, but in the, I think it was 70s or whatever. I just remember, I think from high school. But I used Ralph Klein in Alberta. And I'm sure there's other ones. I just don't remember them right. We've had certain political field leaders back then. They could be on either side, liberal, whatever it would be, right? And back then, the way they did things was different. They weren't their way of success. In my world, it would be like me slamming the next coffee company so I get that business.
Right.
It's brutal. And I understand about giving information, but the reason I'm saying that is again with expectations, and you and me, I think we would scratch our head, but I know people that if they don't get like an A plus-ish type of thing, they're in a downward spiral for like 2 months. So then the conversation, so why would you put that expectation on you?
Right.
And or you can go the other way, say, if your expectations get A plus, what do you need to accomplish that? If I want to lose, again, be vulnerable here, over the last 3 months, I put some weight on. And I'm gonna be honest, right? I hate it, Michelle. 100%. I don't hate myself, by the way.
No, right.
I hate it because I worked really hard and I went through, I think, a period of just, I worked and then myself mentally surviving, my body physically. I couldn't go to the gym, my arm hurt, my heel hurt. Like, and some of that, it wasn't excuses, but then I think it became a good excuse, right? So it's so interesting with expectation. It was funny for me where, like, I was looking at myself in the mirror the other day and I said, "You handsome fella." No, I didn't say that. That's Jim.
You
That's our.
should.
But I looked in the mirror and I said, what good does it do to lament over past failures? What you would use the word failures. What does it help you accomplish? Nothing, right?
You have to draw the experience out. That's what you
What
have.
you do is you go, you know what? I tripped, scuffed my knee.
Yeah.
My balance is crap right now.
Mm.
I literally have to be careful. I fall once in a while, not often enough to go to the hospital, but you have to understand yourself, give yourself peace and confidence and express like the positive, the good stuff. And you know what kind of helped me get through some of it was meditating.
Oh,
Yeah. And even and some of the meditation I've done is not my normal, it's a little bit different. And
okay.
it's still
Like
different
what?
from
Tell me.
oh, now we're going down. What's your expectation of me? No.
I have zero expectation of
Because
most people, and you included. It's
so
all
my
good.
meditation was, oh, no, I didn't do that. So what I find I'm distracted. Some of the stuff you recommended, I've tried. I find I think it's because the way my brain is so busy. I find if I have any dialogue, I have a hard time with it.
Hmm.
Except if like you and me would know some of the stuff. So if I can find a place and just have kind of calming background music or no noise, nothing. And then I think
What about
about
like crashing waves?
what's that?
Crashing waves.
Yeah, water.
Rain.
I can have instrumental music on.
Mm.
I can listen to
Flutes, harps,
well Oddsfield.
singing
What was his
bowls.
name? What was the guy that had the album back in the '60s? So Chris Osfield, Tubular Bells. You gotta listen to it. Oh, you'd love it. You would love it. You'd love it. Anyways, um, and I did it in high school in meditation. One of my teachers was
You
a
told me you really
yeah.
liked it in high
So I'm
school.
going to send you Tubular Bells, but I
Oh,
can listen
do
to
it.
some instrumental kind of new world, I guess they would call it. But in it, focusing on certain parts of my body. And this is something you told me a while
Yeah, that
ago.
body scan. Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
And I don't know if I did it right now. I don't care. But all I know
There's
that
no wrong. You did it right. You did it right.
it was all right. It
It's
was all
all
right.
right. Yeah.
Jamaican. It was Jamaican. It was all right.
All right, man.
And but I was able to do it in a way where I didn't think of something and then all of a sudden I had 5 or 6 bunny trails, right? Because that's what I have to do. I have to the way my brain works, I have to um, I know myself, so I have to really slow down. Focusing on my breath is
You're
really
not
good.
alone. Everybody starts that way. Just so you
Yeah.
know.
But
Everybody. Everybody.
yeah, but for me, talking about expectations, so sometimes depending how you feel,
Hmm.
sometimes letting go with expectations, taking a breath. What's one of my favorite movies with Bill Murray from the '90s? That you
Groundhog Day.
No, that's a good one too, though. That's great. That's a really good one.
That is
Groundhog
a
Day.
really good one.
That's probably a good story.
Yeah.
It's What About Bob
Oh,
with Richard Dreyfuss.
never
And
watched it.
if you haven't seen it, you got to watch it. You'll laugh your face off. You got a funny vote like me. It's Bill Murray is like one of my heroes. I
I
love
love
Bill.
Bill Murray, so I'm sure I probably would.
And um, so in it, he's got all of these problems. He's germophobic, all of these things, right? You're going to love the punchline, but all these things. So he can't keep a psychologist because he becomes needy and codependent on them. He can't even leave them alone.
Oh yeah, right. You explained that. Yep, yep.
So he ends up with Richard Dreyfuss, and he's trying to help him because he's a good little doctor. And all of a sudden he's going, oh my word, like this guy's like stalking my house and he's showing up when I'm on vacation. So he gets a piece of paper like this, little yellow pad, whatever I have here,
Yeah.
and he writes on it. I love it. Like this is like 22 years, magical. He writes on the paper, he goes, I'm giving you a prescription. Take a holiday away from your problems.
Oh, yeah, good.
And I thought, so then, like the movie, whatever, right? But I thought we have the power in the midst of unmet expectations, stress, especially negative feelings of failure, whatever, all that stuff, right? Worried about the world and who's going to, do what,
Yeah.
whatever. And we really do have that power to say, and so that movie reminded me of meditating. It wasn't meditating, but it was you need to chill and take a problem. And you know what? In the movie, it helps them.
Oh,
It was
yeah, for sure. I have
so
my
so
best ideas when I zone out like that.
but it's one of those things realizing the power that we have with um, influence with others. The big thing I'm on now, Michelle and I were talking earlier. She actually inspired me or encouraged me to write a book, so it was really good. Appreciate her doing it. She's got like how many books you got out now? 17? No, four.
No, but mine are books like that, like they're
But
activity books.
but your
Not
books,
degrading them, but just saying.
her books are great. They're on Amazon. Look them up. But her, and I know you hate me doing that, but hey, I'm a sales
No,
dude, right?
no, go for it. No, no.
But what's great about that, those books came out of your thoughts and ideas on how to create something to help people
That's right.
because that's just your makeup, right?
Right.
So it's an interesting. I'm just
Are you
seeing what
getting
happened.
broken into? Are you being raided while we're on?
No, my son threw his clothes in the dryer. I didn't. I
He
couldn't
does
see
his
him
own
because it's
laundry?
blurry. What's that?
He does his own laundry?
Yeah, it's one of my expectations. No,
Yeah, I would think so at his age. My goodness.
come on, Robert, let's get that stuff. No, I'm joking.
You know, it's so funny. I had this conversation with Nicole. Sorry, side note, because her kids, her older ones are 13, 14 or 14, 15. And like my kids, as soon as they're like 8 or 9 years old, I had them doing their own laundry
Yep.
without a doubt. You can't really do it wrong at this age, right? Like we're past worrying about, mixing a dark in there or whatever.
Two, with what you're saying, because this is where we're going. This is our show, folks. This is
Yeah.
what you do. You get so many life lessons in this, and it's for free. You just have to hit the subscribe button. There.
Like and subscribe. Thank you for saying that.
Bang, bang, bang. So
Right
couple
down
couple
there.
things about expectations. So when I was the eldest, and again, Michelle and I story, uh, we were raised together, right? So I'm the eldest, and the next two oldest were with me. If our sister Tammy she
Mhm.
listens to this, she knows what I'm talking about. So I was the first one that had to do dishes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So then the following year, it was Tammy's turn or whatever the thing was, right? Well, Tammy learned that if she didn't do dishes very good and left them pretty dirty, they would ask her to do dishes.
She told me that like 40 years later.
So
Terrible.
who learned from her? The next youngest, Tim.
Oh,
And so all of a sudden, who's like 47 years old and still doing dish? No, who's like so so it's funny because it reminds
that's
me of
funny.
that Huckleberry Finn Tom Sawyer thing about painting the fence.
Defense.
It's this
Yes.
punishment. No, this is so fun. I can't let you do it. It's too much fun, right?
That's
But then
right.
the other one talking about like my daughter, right? So working through what she's had to go through with severe depression when she was here, just like I don't think some people understand how devastating that is. Like it is unless you've experienced because it's just a hard thing. It's like I don't know, I would know this, but a woman going through postpartum depression after birth, all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
I know people told me the stories, right? So my daughter, the eldest granddaughter helps, but the youngest one is still 7 and kind of crazy. Lots of energy.
Chores list.
Don't
Right?
do it. Don't do it.
So, well, why don't they do
Don't
it?
go to school.
Yeah.
You don't. So I know that face is live forever. I just want you to know. Yeah. So mom would say the same thing. Just tell her to do it. Wasn't going to school because again, there's just trauma. Like and it's like that's why they moved back, right? Obviously. And it sounds easy, just get them to do it. When you have no energy and your child goes postal, what do you do?
But
Right?
it starts way before this moment now. You know what I mean?
But when you're in a broken, and I think you had some strength when you came out of your relationship, but when you're, and we raised better, but talking about expectations, right?
Yeah, we should go back to that.
Well, this is what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about me. I say this to mom, by the way, if she listens to this. Um, subscribe, mom. No, um, mom would say kind of the same thing she is, and I understand that. And of course, I don't want this burden on Emily. Of course, it's the way you're rendered or raised, right? But we're not all, I'm being facetious to me, to mom. We're not all perfect. We don't all have the way. So, what the way I was raised with common sense, where I would give up a seat on the bus to an elder person, I would respect my elders, I wouldn't swear. That's not the culture, right?
It's
And
so
when
weird
you're,
that is gone today.
it's gone, right? Back using the past and the present for me, like trying to find understanding, because I'm not making excuses for it, by the way, just so you understand. The Because I've been go up there and I'm washing walls that have been drawn on all over. So do you take the child into the room and beat the crap out of him? No. Do you?
No, I'm just keeping my opinion to myself at this point.
No, but you
But you
can be,
definitely do not do that. That is for
yeah.
sure.
But
That's
but
for
so
sure.
but so it's
But there's other
interesting.
things you can do.
But here would be my challenge. And this was a TV show. I think I watched one show of it. There was a show years ago where they took either a mother or father from one family and they switched
Yep.
them to another. You
Wife
remember that?
swap.
Yeah. And different temperaments, different stuff.
Oh,
And
it's
it's
not
just
my kind of show. No.
nuts, right?
Yeah, not for
So
me.
the part about expectations. So correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm putting you in the mix with me. I would say my expectation for my youngest granddaughter is to help her get to a point where she understands going to school is really important. She
Yeah, for
understands
sure.
that if
Create the drive.
bring your bring your dishes when you're finished to the sink, like stuff we would take for
Mm.
granted. But I wish it was easy as that because it would make my life
But
easier.
I
My
think you're in damage control mode at this point, right?
100%.
Because the day, like, so it's a whole different thing than where these things went wrong in the beginning. You know,
Yeah.
and a lot of times with parents, and I don't want to overstep, so like
Yep.
topic change anytime, but I
Oh
think
no,
what
it's fine.
happens a lot of times with us, and I went through the same thing, is especially with if you come from a nuclear family, you have an expectation that that's what you're going to have and you're going to work on it and da 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 da. And because I went through this, and then you don't, and it doesn't work out, and then you let your kids get away with things because you feel guilty because you're not providing those things, and then it's the classic slip to a slide, and then you've got some big problems, right?
When you say a nuclear family, what do you mean by that?
A mother
Just
and a father in the home.
oh, I see what you're saying. So yeah. So, but
Because
I
you
would
and
say,
Teresa were together. That's her nuclear family.
yeah. So even when he was there, I know I'm making my faces. There was no nuclear family. There was
But
no.
for on paper there was. Like I knew it doesn't mean that they're fulfilling the roles necessarily
Yeah.
properly, but you and Teresa have shown that, and my parents the same thing. They were together until like my dad died. And so with you and Teresa as well, I mean, you know, and I know relationships are work. You
Yeah.
never stop working at it.
But
You know, there's periods that are not great.
from your experience,
Hmm.
you had to leave.
Oh, for sure. But then I carried a lot of guilt from that.
Yeah. And so
And then
depending
I
on
did it again.
so I and we'll have to carry this on next time. But here's the thought, right? 100%. So what I
Sorry,
just
Emily. I feel incredibly guilty speaking about
no, no, don't. This is really good because our goal is with anybody who hears this and family. If you're family, you know me, you know my heart, you know Michelle. Like we love our family more than anything, right? But part of it is like I think understanding is so important, right? So in the midst of writing, I tell Michelle, I'm writing like my early years, right? And I'm writing about I have no memories as a child of my biological father. My only memory I have, and that had to do with neglect and abuse and like everything, right? Then the only memory I had, like when I was 15, is I went from Toronto, me, Tammy, Tim, Toronto to Ottawa, to ground bus, I guess, and we saw him, and he's passed away now, so he's not going to be offended. But we saw, I sat in front of him because I'm the oldest, and he goes, "Hey, do you want to smoke a joint?"
Mhm.
That's my only memory. So what we do is we, in trauma places, we
So do you
block.
feel like that's a bad memory?
No,
Oh, good.
it's not a good
Because it
memory.
was however he thought he could connect with you, right?
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
was it. Yeah, that wasn't. Yeah, that was what. There's a whole in the book. I talk a bit about it, but here's the thing, right? Being the oldest, dealing with an oldest child, because you were kind of raised like my two, one's 32, one's 19, so they were each kind of individual, like raised as only children, right?
Oh, okay. Yep.
Kind of
Yep.
thing, right? And you a little bit too, because the brothers were older, right? Is that correct?
Um, later, like they were 5 and 7 years older than me.
Okay,
So
so not 12 and 13. Okay, yeah,
yeah, not till
yeah.
yeah, when I like
So
I yeah, not till I was older they were gone.
so so one of the things I write about is that mom was raised in the system because of how her parents were. Our grandma worked at the Chateau Hotel in Ottawa, was a housemaid, and she did the best she could. 11 kids. I was telling mom today about talk about body trauma. 11 babies coming out of that womb and five stillborn.
Yep.
Like holy
Hmm.
darn,
It was
right?
common back then. It
But
was very common.
they wouldn't have known the trauma done to the body, and then they had to
Sure.
get up and take care of the kids, right?
Yep.
So one of my memories is I remember at the very end, I think you and Tina were gone, and so now I have these types of memories. But I remember living in Belleville, horrible house, rat infested, horrible
Mhm.
house. And I know you know about the story. And I remember mom being sick. I think she had a really bad infection in her teeth and gums. She couldn't get off the couch for at least a week, maybe 10 days, maybe 2 weeks.
Wow.
I took care of all the kids
Yeah,
in this
that's
rat
heavy.
house,
That's so
um,
heavy. Is
plastic, no back door, plastic
that when
staple
you learned
door.
how to cook?
Yeah, right. I boiled water and I put a rat in it.
Craft dinner or
Ratatouille.
something.
Ratatouille.
Yeah.
No, but in it, but talk about scarring and deal with stuff.
Mm.
Um, at that point, she realized she'd already, in a sad way, had given up other children before that, right? Because we don't know, like, because I think of my daughter, by the way, we don't know. We're not in their shoes, so we might have some smarts and education and good advice, which is all good, right? But all I remember is she had to leave the house. Social child services wouldn't come take us unless we were either beaten or abandoned.
Mm.
So she went across the street with Grandma Jean, and the neighbor phoned social services, and they came to pick us up. And actually, because it was a Friday night, they
Mm.
actually stayed with us Saturday and Sunday because the office didn't work Monday. So one of their officers, I don't remember, it was a guy. I don't remember. He had to stay with us for the whole weekend. And Mom had Jimmy because he was a baby.
Oh, I was long gone by then. Okay.
Yeah, you were out of the drawer.
But see, you have
Um,
to keep in mind, and I'm not trying to like get into a big thing with her or
no,
whatever,
no,
but
yeah,
with me and with Jimmy and with Tina and Roxanne and I have never had this conversation.
yeah.
I probably talked to her the least for sure, for sure. But
Now, before you go, now everybody, we're talking about our own life, so it's fair. Anyways, go ahead.
oh, absolutely. Well, and all I was going to say is, as much as like everybody sort of runs on memory, and so she's with our mom, with her broken memory, trauma filled, which can mean it's true or not true. So we've got all that. But with me and Tina and Jimmy, and I imagine Roxanne, we've all got children's aid reports. So we've got facts and documentation
Yeah.
that sort of paints a little bit of maybe a different picture. That's all. So
Well,
work
I
so
would,
all of us doing books, they're not going to align, which is interesting.
yeah, but in those reports, I think I've seen the reports. So, in those reports,
Well, you haven't seen mine.
yeah. So in those reports, I think Jimmy and Jeff, in those reports, it talks about a dysfunctional
Mhm.
mother,
Sure. Yeah.
dis not there. And again, I'm not validating anything, right? But what I'm saying is when you go through, let's not use our story, it's a different story, right? When I'm working with somebody
Hmm.
and I don't understand what I think they went through as a child, I went through worse, so they should be better than how they're responding, we'll say, right? To me,
You actually think that
what's that?
that you went through worse? What? I didn't get that.
Yeah, so I'm using it as an example. I'm not going to use. I'm using just some people I've worked with over the last few years, right? Or actually, some of the people with drug addiction I've worked with over the last 20 years, right? And I've heard horror stories. I've
Sure.
heard, but for one person, what could be a mountain, the other for
Oh,
another person that
true.
can feel like a pebble, right?
That's right. That's right. That's
Perspective,
right.
right? But when you go through with anybody, the way I believe Gabor talks about this, not on this single, but one of the books that I read of his, the way we survive our trauma
Hmm.
as children. If you live in poverty, he talks about his story. If you live in poverty, if you have been molested, if you've been abused, if you've been bullied, if you've been like whatever these things put in, and you can have combinations of them, right? Depending on, again, now this is your personality. Some will rise above, and they won't, for better word, they won't be as traumatized as somebody else. Person one,
Sure.
person two,
Right.
depending on probably some genetic stuff, but also like our personality makeup, right? And and using Gabor all the time, but he talks about you know surviving the Holocaust, all this stuff, being raised the way he was raised, and then he becomes a doctor, and
Hmm.
he all he wanted was success, to be recognized, to be important, where it nearly cost him his family and his children,
That's right.
right?
That's
So how we cope and do things. So one of the things that I'm thinking, it's like I'm not. This isn't the book, by the way. In some things, I'm investigating and looking at information from back from the '60s, the '50s, the '40s
hmm
on how, depending if you're raised in the prairies in a farming family, that you you all a few extra pounds on it, but you ate good and you worked as a family, right? Compared
Sure.
to living in a city or suburb, like so. All of
Everything
these
matters.
things, it's so interesting to me
Mm.
how. And Gabor talks about rats. He uses a rat experience as an example of how they respond, right? So so in my mind, I look at how, like, so I'm bringing current. So I look at the people I love now, and I think you love me, you do this for me, and I think my sister, my family would, right?
Mm.
Is we would take the information experience that we've learned by book or by life experience, and we would do what we can to help our kids and those around us.
Oh,
If we,
absolutely. For
you and
sure.
me, on our Facebook closed page,
Shared
what we try to do, right?
experience. Yeah.
So I think
Even though they don't listen.
no, but and that's the hard thing for me, just owning it. That's my expectation, right?
Me
But
too.
but I
OMG. I get
but I
it.
but I think, like, I have some people. I'll leave on this thought, then you can finish up to, if you have a saying, a dance,
A
uh,
jig.
pom poms, a jig, an Irish hat.
I'll think
But
of something.
as I get older, I'm learning. Like, I don't in my past, I don't need to villainize. For me, I don't need to victimize. I don't need to blame shift. Everything that happened. I can't change the thing.
That's right.
I can't change the thing, right? I can't change the things that were horribly done to me, and I can't change things that I did, right?
Right.
But I can
But you
learn
can
from
own it, right? You can
it.
own it.
100%. That's the important thing, right? And
That's
when you, but here's
important.
the funny thing: when you own it, I'll finish with this. We'll talk about the doing dishes and all that type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
For some people, I think I'm going to use mothers. I'm not a mother, but just using the situation. When you feel like I'm talking Kurt, right? And when you feel like you know that your kids should clean up after them and help, blah blah blah, and they don't, and you're already exhausted and all that, you you now feel like a horrible mother because you expectation you're not even meeting yours to have help around the family, and you're exhausted and you're burned out, you're dealing with all your stuff, and so that expectation you think of others and you have it yourself, they bulldoze you, right? So here's the thing, what I've learned in my personal experience with my lovely daughter, right? um, just have Easter. We when we bring energy, good energy, good energy,
Yeah.
wherever
Good
you are,
energy.
you know, outside.
That's
When we
right.
bring good energy into something and encourage and set examples of those things, we have the ability to change our world per se, right? And so when we went up there, we did a lot of work, and then when we left, my daughter's done a lot of work the last few days. She sends me pictures, little videos,
Oh, good.
and I'm so proud of her, right? Now, is the youngest one partaking? Not really, but you know what'll happen?
She's watching.
100%. So if we want to be good examples, talk about cooking. If I help mom, you saw my pictures of the steaks I put on
I did.
Facebook?
Yeah.
Pretty fancy dude, right? I told mom and Shirley how to cook a steak. You and me would assume, like, come on, use your brain, right?
That's exactly what's in my head right now.
Well, I hate to tell you, I know people that don't even know how to make craft dinner. I'm
That's
embarrassed.
fair. I agree, and that's
I'm
very
I'm embarrassed
exciting.
for them because I'm a
Yeah.
nerd. So I told her hot pan. So I told her stuff. So my start she goes, "Oh, the steak was the best we've had," and it
Well,
was just a little. Hello there. It was just a little thing, just encouraging to try something, right? So, anyways, why don't you end our story?
so today I have a quote by Dolly Parton.
Who's she?
If you don't like the road you're walking on, start paving a new one.
Wasn't that Glenn Campbell?
No, it's Dolly Parton.
Okay.
Nice try. So everybody like and
Yeah.
surprise. Like
Thank you
and
for putting up with us.
subscribe. Yeah, thanks for putting up with Tom and his quirkiness. We love him anyways. It's like doing our charity work, hanging out with Tom on Sundays. But we appreciate you. Please, just so you know, I'll be posting the May self-care calendar sometime in the next, probably tomorrow is when I'll do that. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week. New topic, same day, same time, same two faces.
Maybe
Well, maybe we'll mix it up, right?
I
I'll
may
have to,
mix it
I'm
up.
not a hat person, but I can find one.
Yeah, this is my
Right?
crocodile Dundee hat.
There you go.
That
All right.
doesn't
So
help me. So
everybody, don't
see
forget how
everybody.
awesome you are. We appreciate you. Have a
See ya.
fabulous week.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're done.
We are on our way to done and end.
Okay, I'm just gonna find out what's happening with the kids here.
Find out.